Hey folks, this week Rob joins me again and we talk with Paulus Schoutsen about the ESPHome Foundation. That's Home Assistant, ESPHome, and Music Assistant, and it's all about an open source smart home. You don't want to miss it, so stay tuned. This is Floss Weekly, episode 848, recorded Tuesday, September 23rd. Open the Podbay doors, Siri. It's time for Floss Weekly. That's the show about free, Libre, and open source software. I'm your host, Jonathan Bennett, and today we're getting smart at home. We're talking about smart homes and the ESPHome Foundation. First off, though, I've got a co-host, a wonderful and talented, a lovely co-host, the same co-host we had last week, actually. It's Rob. Hey, Rob.
I'm back again.
You know something about being smart at home.
Yeah, I enjoy automating as much as I can, as much as money allows, I should say. As much as time and money allows, I like to do
No, my automation's not working. In theory, I have a button here that turns lights on and off, but as I'm sure a lot of people that do smart home automation realize, if you don't stay on top of these things, sometimes they just break mysteriously. Have you had that experience?
Yeah, I seem to have a couple times a year I had to reboot, or things start dropping off my Home Assistant lights, and I reboot the lights, they come back, but then they drop off again, and I'm like, oh yeah, last time I just rebooted my access point, and then everything works for months.
It's not a Home Assistant problem, it's an access point problem. Well, we have the man, we have the guy, the guy that knows. And I did a test pronunciation of his name, Paulus Schoutsen, and I was told that's close enough. So welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
It's great. It's good to have you.
Yeah, good to be here.
So you are the guy at Home Assistant and the ESPHome Foundation and ESPHome and Music Assistant. So like what are all of these things? First off, lay out the landscape for us. Like what all are we talking about?
So let's start with Home Assistant. Home Assistant is the brains of your smart home, right? It's an open source platform. You can install it in a Docker container, install it on a Raspberry Pi where it has its own extra features like add-ons and stuff it can do. And that's the brain of your smart home. But while we were building the brains of your smart home, and we were getting really good at it, we're getting a lot of traction. We're able to sustain funding from our users to build even further. We realized, if your smart home can be all about privacy, choice, and sustainability, as the focus points of Home Assistant are, but if your thermostat still requires a cloud connection, then what are we doing, right? We're still talking to the cloud. You're still relying on the cloud. And so we had to craft like a bigger vision, which we call the open home, where basically we want your whole smart home to be about privacy and local control. And then we acquired an open source project called ESPHome. Like it already existed. It came out of the Home Assistant community, but we bought it up and we put like full-time maintenance on it. The person that originally started was no longer interested in maintaining it. And ESPHome, that is our approach for our community to build their own smart home devices. So we probably all know the ESP32, which is a microcontroller, very affordable, like $6-7. You have one in a nice case. It has Wi-Fi. It can talk to sensors, all that stuff. With ESPHome, you said, I have YAML. You write a bit of YAML where you say, on pin D5, I have a temperature sensor. And ESPHome will now create software, install it on your ESP32. The ESP32 connects to your Wi-Fi, connects with Home Assistant. Now you have temperature data in Home Assistant, right? And all of a sudden, okay, now our community, we have the brains, we have the smart home devices that we're building. And of course, we still work with every other smart home device out there as well. But we saw that our community now is able to build their own smart devices and start selling even. We have a bunch of manufacturers now that came out of our community focusing on selling towards our community with ESPHome powered devices. And then we ran into another limitation where we realized, okay, we can control your lights, your locks, your sensors, we turn on your vacuum, all that stuff, but music is a hard one. And there are some systems out there that do multi-room audio, but most of them are all proprietary. And so you can either go the old school way, which is still awesome, where you just have an amplifier, you have amazing speakers, and you play audio. Mm-hmm. Or you go to these modern systems that are multi-room, Wi-Fi connected, but they put everything in a box. And for example, if Sonos doesn't want to support their old speakers, even though they still work as speakers, you're out of luck, right? And now all of a sudden you have like a different ecosystem. And so that's when somebody in our community started Music Assistant. A Music Assistant is basically Home Assistant, but for music. So it ties in every music source out there. So it works with your local MP3 collection, of course, but it works with Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, YouTube Music, and creates a single unified collection. And then it can stream that to any source it wants in any combination. So if you want to make a playlist with a Spotify song, some MP3s that you have, and a Tidal song, that works because Music Assistant itself will craft a web radio, basically. And so it creates a lossless audio stream, and it can stream that either to like an ESPHome media player, but there's WIM devices, Sonos devices, any other of those smart media players that are tied in with their own ecosystem. They all can play web radio. So we can all send this URL. And so with Music Assistant, we kind of got this layer of music. And once you control sound, you can do a lot of fun stuff because you can do announcements. Right, so you want to be able to talk to the user and tell them things are happening. There's somebody at the door. There's your laundry is done. A leak is detected. All these kind of things that are urgent, basically. And so, yeah, with controlling the music, we were able to bring this also to our user base. And I know our ecosystem kind of keeps growing as well because we have a lot of, we have the machine going, which is the Open Home Foundation. So all of these projects that I just mentioned, they're all part of the Open Home Foundation. So I started Home Assistant and I donated Home Assistant to the Open Home Foundation. I said ESPHome was acquired by a company that is a commercial partner of the Open Home Foundation and also donated to the Open Home Foundation. Music Assistant was donated. And now the Open Home Foundation builds these projects with their community together in making it awesome.
Yeah, that's very cool. That is a great overview as well. I was reminded, I forgot to ask, I am speaking to you from Southwest Oklahoma. I know Rob is in one of those northern states that I've never been to. What state is it, Rob?
It's Minnesota.
Minnesota. I was going to guess Wisconsin. That would get me in trouble. So, Paulus, where are you speaking to us from?
So I'm based in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Is that a Brooklyn accent?
No. I'm originally from the Netherlands. I came to the States 2012. Did 10 years of Southern California, and now Brooklyn.
All right, very cool. So as we think about this, one of the first questions that immediately came to mind is particularly with the ESPHome project. Do you guys like license that to hardware manufacturers? And so I'm sure it's an open source license, but are there officially supported ESPHome products, that someone can buy?
So we have, so it's an open source license, so anyone can take ESPHome, generate firmware, put it on their devices, distribute it. We have a made for ESPHome program, which is where manufacturers that follow certain lines that are aligned with our values, they get accepted to this program. So the made for ESPHome program requires that the software is open source. So it means that on GitHub, the YAML configuration should be accessible. It should also be easily onboardable. So we have developed open standard called Improv Wi-Fi that allows users to use Bluetooth to send the Wi-Fi credentials to your ESP32 device.
Very
because
cool.
That whole thing with access points that a lot of things do, like older devices used to do, is that the problem with the access point is that the moment you connect to an access point, you send it your Wi-Fi credentials. The device has to take down the access point to connect to your Wi-Fi, so you don't get any feedback if it doesn't work. Right? That's super annoying. And with Bluetooth, we don't have to take it back down. And so what happens is that the device connects to Wi-Fi, it figures out its IP address to DHCP. It gets an IP address when it connects to the Wi-Fi, sends that IP address to the user, and now the user can navigate to that device. And so this is technology, by the way, that we've built for ESPHome, but a lot of other projects are using this. Like we have a variant that works over serial and a variant that works over Bluetooth. For example, WLED, which is a project to control LEDs, an open source project. It uses also our Improv Wi-Fi to get the Wi-Fi credentials sent over.
Yeah, very cool. That's a challenging problem on some devices because a lot of ESP32 devices have a single radio that does Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. one
They're
physical
able
antenna.
but they're able to multitask. So there's the ESP, how do you call it? The IDF, which is the base framework that runs on the ESPs. They will handle that multitasking.
Oh, interesting. I will have to go and dive into that because this is a problem that I have in one of the projects that I'm a part of. In fact, I don't know if we want to get into this during the show, but I do a lot of work with the Meshtastic project, and there is a right. So there's like an integration that people have written that we would we support, would love to officially support. But like Meshtastic is GPLv3, and I think ESPHome is all in. What license?
Apache. We have mainly Apache license.
Right, right. And so to try to put the two of those together, particularly if somebody does it in the ESPHome Foundation, you get into the the viral nature of the GPL, and I don't think anybody has quite figured out how to work around that yet.
I mean, we're not like we don't want to have all the projects under the ESPHome Foundation. Because we want to make sure, like, it's a community effort, right? And of course, the ESPHome Foundation, we have a set of values that we're very targeted. I like the fact that there's a lot of different ways people are building stuff. And for example, we built that improv Wi-Fi to get people to configure the Wi-Fi. We also built ESP web tools, like 80% of all ways people install ESP32s from a browser is through ESP web tools nowadays. And it's technology that we've built also to make these kind of things accessible, to make it like as easy as possible to install any open source firmware on an ESP and get started, right? Like back in the days, we all had to ask people to, hey, do you want to install Python? And then you can use ESP tool Py, right? And now it's like, no. Everybody has a website. Everybody has a website. You click, you install. It automatically detects which chip it is, routes to the correct firmware, nice progress bar, all these things.
We are spoiled by Web Serial and some of those technologies. They make things so much easier than they used to be. So what was the original spark? So did you actually start? You may have told us this already, but did you actually start the smart home, the original project? What was the spark? What were you just scratching your own itch?
Yeah, I was scratching my own itch. I got a Philips Hue was released, right? And Philips Hue, they always have had a local they've always had a local API. And so I got the Philips Hue bulbs. This is like end of 2012, I think. And I started playing with it. I was able to get a Python script going to control them locally, and I felt like, okay, I need to do something with this, right? Like, I have this script, but I can control my lights, which is what I wanted, but now what? So I was like, you know what? Let me turn on the lights when the sun sets. So I wrote a little script, get the sun, calculate the sunset, and turn on the lights. But then I realized now the lights are being turned on, actually, also when I'm not at home, right? Because it's on the sunset. So I added presence detection. And then I realized, sunset is actually too late. You have to look at like the percentage that the sun is above the horizon, right? Because in the winter it goes faster, and so it has to be like an offset. And that's kind of how the ball got rolling. And now we're here. Fast forward 12 years later. Yeah.
So on the list of projects you mentioned a music assistant. That one's pretty new to me. I feel like maybe I've heard something about it, but I've never looked into it. Is that completely separate, or is that something you could plug right into Home Assistant?
So you plug it right into Home Assistant. So you install it as an add-on. The add-on runs Music Assistant as a separate application, which is important because sometimes Home Assistant gets very busy, and audio needs its own dedicated process. Because there's no hiccups allowed, because we humans notice right away, right, when there's some buffering happening or something. Yeah. And so it runs as an add-on, integrates directly into Home Assistant. You can run it as a separate container as well. And then in Home Assistant, you just get the media players. You can send stuff to Music Assistant. Music Assistant has its own user interface, allowing you to set up the providers and all the output devices and stuff.
Yeah.
That sounds cool. It sounds like that could solve some musical challenges within my home.
Can you run Open Music without ESPHome? Without Home Assistant, that is?
So yeah, Music Assistant is just a separate container, just like ESPHome can be run as a separate container as well. ESPHome can also output, it has the ESPHome protocol, which is an encrypted connection over protobuf, very fast. It can also use MQTT. Right, so there's multiple ways. We always build our technology not locked into our ecosystem, but there's general pieces that are pluggable. And for example, every integration in Home Assistant, for example, I mentioned Philips Hue, how it started, but the Chromecast integration, all the protocols implementation are required to be a separate Python library. So there's a single Python library that you can use with Home Assistant, but it has nothing Home Assistant specific in it. It's a very clear rule we have, because we want any IoT, if you just want to write a script to talk to Cast devices, you should just be able to download our Pi Chromecast library and use it without actually needing Home Assistant for that.
I'm curious, and this is a totally different tangent, but it does come to mind. I sort of sneakily plug Meshtastic, but there are some other wireless protocols out there like Zigbee, and I think that's become Z-Wave now.
They're separate.
Are they separate? Okay.
Yeah.
Probably thinking about the same problems, though. How do those play into Home Assistant? It sounds like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi are kind of the go-to solutions these days, but I'm curious about some of these other wireless protocols.
Yeah, so the reason why Wi-Fi is popular is because there is no extra device needed to get started, right? If you want to use Zigbee or Z-Wave, one of the two, there's 3 smart home standards, by the way. There's also Matter. Matter does go over Wi-Fi, but let me focus on Zigbee and Z-Wave because they have something unique, which is that they have their own radio that you need, right? So actually, we started just making our own antenna. This is a Z-Wave antenna. We made sure that we built the biggest antenna possible because everybody was making these small dongles, and it was like, then you don't have the best connectivity, and then you blame Home Assistant, right? Because Home Assistant talks to the adapter. But these smart home standards, they are like 20, 25 years old, right? They're really old. They do lights, they do sensors, and they're optimized to basically capture that data and send it wirelessly over a mesh network to Home Assistant. And this works without Wi-Fi. You don't need anything else. If your internet is down, all of this stuff continues to work, and it's very, very reliable because of that. My personal preference is Z-Wave because it's sub-gigahertz. So it's like 900, depending on where you're in the world, it's either 900 megahertz, in the 900 megahertz range or the 800 megahertz range. Zigbee is in the 2.4 gigahertz range. So, of course, faster signals that are, will easier reach a destination, or like it's faster reach a destination, but cannot travel as far through walls. And it's very crowded. 2.4 gigahertz is Zigbee, Bluetooth, Thread, the Wi-Fi, the older Wi-Fis, right? It's all on that spectrum. So I'm also on the board actually of the Z-Wave Alliance. So we've been, invited there to also make sure that the consumer side is represented within that alliance. Because for us, we love these open standards because they just keep working, right? Like you can buy a Z-Wave device, or even in the second-hand store, the manufacturer is long gone, doesn't exist anymore, you can still set it up, right? Like there is no app needed, there is no onboarding process, there's no terms of service of giving away your data or anything, right? Like the data of your light bulb, your sensor, whatever, it just goes into Home Assistant, and that's where it stays. And that means it's in your house, it doesn't leave the walls.
Do you see Z-Wave as kind of being the future, the direction things are moving?
No, the direction is very much moving towards Matter. And Matter is the new smart home standard, and it's backed by Google and Apple and Amazon. And they basically all got together and said, we want to make a new smart home standard. And basically, we're putting all the learnings we had from like HomeKit and Google Home and Alexa and all of it into Matter. And that's why it works over Wi-Fi and it works over Thread. Thread is like a mesh network, came out of Nest, but it's based also on 2.4 gigahertz. And because Matter works over Wi-Fi, it's actually the first smart home standard that works over Wi-Fi, which is very interesting. We didn't have that, right? Like every time there was a Wi-Fi product, it had to have a cloud because there was nothing local. So washing machines are not in Zigbee or Z-Wave, or vacuum cleaners or cameras, and all that stuff is now either in Matter, coming to Matter, because Matter can do high bandwidth stuff like cameras. It is more interested in any item to be included. And because Google and Apple have monopolies on the cell phone market, they're using this now. They added Matter support to iPhone and Android, or iOS and Android, I have to say. So anyone in the world, basically, anyone listening to this show could buy a Matter device that works over Wi-Fi and set it up on their phone with either Apple Home or Google Home without installing any extra apps, because they are pre-installed. And so we see a lot of Matter devices being built. For me, I want to see multiple standards flourish, because one standard is just not good enough. There needs to be some competition. There needs to be choice, absolutely. Right? And I think Matter is great because Matter is also local, right? So you can still talk locally to your device. What is the downside of Matter is because it's Wi-Fi, these devices can talk over Wi-Fi to the internet without going over Matter, right? So Wi-Fi is protocol agnostic. We have this conversation over Wi-Fi. Matter goes over Wi-Fi, and when you watch like Instagram, it goes over Wi-Fi, right? And so even though a washing machine was connected over Wi-Fi for Matter, now it can start sending analytics or whatever they want to send to the cloud as well.
This is why we encourage people to also run something like an OpenWRT open source router and build themselves their dedicated guest VLAN that doesn't have access to the internet for all their IoT gizmos.
Yes, but there's problems with that one too, because where does Home Assistant live? Is it on your guest IoT LAN, but you need to visit it as a user? No, Home Assistant needs to be able to communicate on it. Mm-hmm. Now there's also devices like when we want to play a music assistant, right? We want to play a music stream. Now your Wim or Sonos device has to talk to a Home Assistant because it has to stream the music that's coming from there. And album art might be sourced from it's hosted on a CDN, and all of a sudden you're like managing a firewall and trying to track everything, and it's like it's messy. It gets messy really quick.
Yeah, so for me and Rob, that's the juice. That's the fun part. But I totally get it that not everybody wants to do all of that.
Yeah. I mean, that for us, our goal is really to make all this technology that is available, that focuses on privacy, local control, of course, our own projects, but anything in the open source world, more accessible to users. Right? Like, we want to make sure that it should be as easy to set up a open source project, whether it's Meshtastic, WLED, or Home Assistant, as it is of buying something off the shelf, more or less.
Yeah, and then you get into the the questionable area of like, okay, if you want to make it that simple, how do you leave the sort of power tools in there for the people that do want to mess with it? So there's always this balance between making it simple, making it configurable, and how do you avoid having one of our devs talks about the spaceship controls. We turn this setting thing into a real spaceship. That's what he says. And how have you guys sort of walked that line?
Yeah, so I mean that's actually one of the most interesting aspects, because we're constantly walking this line, and we have YAML originally YAML was the main configuration language of Home Assistant. We have gradually moved parts of it for authentication into our own storage format that can be done through the user interface. And the reason for that is that authentication changes all the time, right? You get an access token and a refresh token, and the access token expires. You get a new token with your refresh token. You need to write to your authentication all the time. IP addresses change, right? Your Philips Hue hub goes off the network, comes back 10 minutes later, gets a new IP address. Home Assistant needs to know that, it will automatically discover and know that's the Philips Hue device, but now it needs to also write to your authentication. This is the IP address. So we moved all of the authentication only into a configuration storage, which, by the way, is just JSON files, right? Like, we go from YAML to JSON, but users are not supposed to edit those. But they can be automatically reloaded, etc. during while Home Assistant is running. Back in the days, we always had to restart all of Home Assistant just for a change. It's very ridiculous. But of course, automation, scenes, scripts, they are all dashboards. They can do both. So you can either choose, hey, I'm using the user interface, or I'm using YAML. And then YAML has a lot of extensive features added, like we have anchor support. You can include whole directories with YAML files as dictionaries in your current YAML file. You can have a secrets file and import from that secret file. So you can make it easier to share your YAMLs on GitHub, but not your secrets, right? So you can still kind of split that out. But we see in the user interface, every time we make it easier to use something, the adoption increases big time, right? I think we are always overestimating how many people want to dive into deep technology things. Because look, if you're listening to this show, we're probably all like, no, but I want to read every setting and I want to play with every button.
Yes.
But that is, of course, if smart home is your hobby, or if Linux system admin is your hobby, or just like playing with Home Lab or whatever stuff is your hobby, that's perfect. But for a lot of people, they just want to set up energy management and Home Assistant to track like their usage and then call it a day and do the rest of their lives, right? For them, it's just a tool. They want to just one-time set up, walk away. And that should very much be possible, because if you forget that crowd, well, that's the majority, right? Like all of a sudden, you're making it very exclusive to have a privacy-focused smart home, and that's not what we want to achieve, right? We want to make sure that everyone in the world that should have the option to have a privacy-focused smart home, right? Ideally, everyone would have one, but of course, there's many reasons why you want to have another smart home platform. That's fine, but there should be an option to run Home Assistant or something similar to it, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with the goal of things being easy and Matter being the future, what you said, personally, I went all in on Zigbee, not for any reason. I just picked one and went with it.
Yeah. There's nothing bad with Zigbee, right? There's I said Matter is hopefully not a monoculture future, right? Like I hope all the standards flourish, but the Zigbee and Matter come from the same alliance. They're still developing both, but the attention from the members is clearly on the Matter side of things. But just Zigbee will keep working, right? Like the standard Home Assistant will keep talking. Any future update will be backwards compatible. These standards have been backwards compatible for 25 years. It's just that you're at some point maybe like, oh, there's not a Zigbee device for cameras. And then you'll be like, oh, I'm going to mix standards, which is totally fine as well.
Yeah, and my experience with Zigbee, once it works, but sometimes it's been hit and miss setting it up. Sometimes it just doesn't want to see it, and I don't know if that's the hardware I went with. But
I think, for back in the days, Zigbee certification was a bit more Wild Wild West, especially like well, it wasn't Zigbee certification that was Wild Wild West. It was that AliExpress was the Wild Wild West. So
that's still the case.
That is still the case, yes. But the people selling Zigbee on AliExpress has gotten their stuff together. So initially, the initial Zigbee devices that came out of China from Chinese manufacturers, they used Zigbee as more like a transport, and then they have their own things kind of built on top of it. And of course, that didn't work with like the standardized Zigbee stuff. But nowadays, it all works very well nicely. So I always recommend people not to throw out anything that works today, because it works. Why would it? Especially if it works local. But yeah, the new AliExpress is a good source of these devices for Zigbee or Bluetooth or Matter or whatever.
So if I were to start to get Matter devices rather than Zigbee, or switching all to Z-Wave, you said that's Wi-Fi, so that would work with just my Wi-Fi network. And is it just as easy to set up or easier? Or?
Yeah, so Matter is two protocols. So basically Matter works over IP, and it is transport agnostic. But in general, they either work with Thread or with Wi-Fi. And if you set up a Matter device, it's happening over Bluetooth. So your phone, you always set up a Matter device with your phone generally. Your phone will connect to the device, send over the credentials, how to connect to the Thread network, connect to the Wi-Fi network. It then pops up on the network. Your phone detects it via Discovery, MDNS Discovery, and then finishes the onboarding.
So maybe an extra step, but might be more reliable.
The flows are built in by Apple and Google. So it's just like, I think Google even will pop up like, oh, I detect a Matter device. You want to onboard it. Just scan the QR code.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, that definitely makes it easier.
Now, for Zigbee, Zigbee doesn't have QR codes yet, right? So for Zigbee, you have to like turn the light bulb on and off for 6 times. So these kind of like weird things, right? Both Z-Wave and Matter have QR codes, so it's it works very nicely.
I'm getting flashbacks to programming TV remotes back in the 90s. Punch in this code and try to turn it off.
Yeah.
Every different Zigbee device I have, every time I go to reset it up for whatever reason, it's like, okay, do I hold this in for 10 seconds, 15 seconds? Do I wait for what light to flash? And just hope it shows up.
Yes. y'all.
Yeah.
So we haven't talked about AI yet, and I think we're going to have to. We've, in fact, got a question in the YouTube chat room about this very subject. And this is from FS, who wants to know what you think about things like Alexa and Google Assistant using the older assistant software and not actually using LLMs. And I think there's probably a much broader conversation to have here about how LLMs fit into the sort of smart home landscape.
So in 2023, before LLMs were a hit, we realized that Home Assistant is better than like Amazon and Google when it comes to dashboards. We can actually build your own customized dashboard, custom cards. We have better history because you can see all the history and stats and graphs. We have a more powerful automation engine. But the one thing where Google and Amazon were better than us, and Apple too, was voice. So we declared 2023 year of the voice. And since 2023, we've been building a voice assistant. I have one here. I'm holding up to the camera, but if you're listening, it's a small device. It has a button, a rotary encoder for volume, and it has a speaker and microphones. And we built, over the course of like 2 years, we built our own open source voice assistant. We built our own wake word engine that can run on the ESP chip that runs inside of this. We have our own speech-to-text and text-to-speech engines that are optimized to run performant on a Raspberry Pi 4 without big hardware. We have a sentence matching system. And then AI came around, and everybody was like, whoa, I want to use AI. Well, the way we build every system is that every module is pluggable. So we could actually plug and take out the sentence matching that we did for like our normal voice assistant and put it in LLM. So people in our community, they've been experimenting with LLMs, and it's been a big hit for people that like it, but it's choice, right? So if you want to use AI in Home Assistant, you can. If you don't want to use AI, we still have the old method. But also, if the AI runs local or with Google or OpenAI, we have all these different integrations, again, because we want to see the user having choice. Right. We're not absolutists in that, like, the never AI. We believe that whatever runs inside your Home Assistant, that's your data. Right. And so it's not up to us to tell you what to do with that data. If you want to send this all to Grok, for all that matters, right? Like, that's fine. Like, just send it there. And like, Google has a free version of Gemini where they explicitly state we'll train on your data. People want to send their data too? That's fine. Like, that's their choice, right? But we want to make sure that we have all those features available in Home Assistant. AI is moving rapidly fast, right? So what was possible last year is now eclipsed twice, 3 times by what is possible this year. And so in Home Assistant, we do tool calling. So you can say, turn on the lights and set a timer. It's able to do that. But we also have it now available in our automation engine. So you can actually have, it's called AI Task. You can send a question with an attachment, maybe a snapshot from a camera or a picture, to the AI and say, what do you see here? And we're seeing now people in our community sending snapshots of their chicken coop to count the number of chickens that are inside their chicken coop. They send their video doorbell to see if the parking spot in front of their house is available, yes or no. There are people analyzing what delivery driver, what company it was from, or these kind of things. And putting that into automations gives people, the community's been going crazy. They're doing all this like wild stuff. Wow. The things I just mentioned, one of my most fun ones is actually somebody made an automation. Every time the media player goes to the next song, it will send the artist an album to AI and ask, is this a country song? And if so, it would skip the song.
Wow.
So, it's brilliant.
Yeah. I'm falling behind. I need to get caught up on my Home Assistant game.
But the original question was, what do I think that Amazon and Google are still using the older one? So Amazon is rolling out LLMs, right? Alexa Plus, it's slowly rolling out. It's a bit hit and miss, I hear. I think the biggest challenge that all these systems have is that users are very used to a specific set of functionality be available, and the functionality that is very popular is setting timers, shopping list, playing music, controlling lights. That's more or less the top four that these products are used for. The LLM version are not as reliable as the old version. So you might say something, and like Kevin Roos talked about this at the Hard Fork podcast, that like he cancels an alarm usually in the morning and it just didn't work, right? even though it said it had canceled the alarm, it still went off, woke up everyone. He was very annoyed. People have expectations, and they need to grow with a product that now, because it's LLMs based, doesn't always do what you want it to do. And that is not a thing people are used to. I think Google is going to launch theirs, I think October 1st, so next week. I think the big launches, including now also, there were rumors that there's going to be a subscription model that you can upgrade into to, I don't know, do even more AI stuff. Because all this stuff costs money, right? Sure. And so will you pay a subscription fee just to control your lights, set timers and shopping lists? I don't know, right? Like there has to be more. And I think that the whole, I don't know, an AI that's always listening to you and will like interrupt your conversations to help you out or something, we're not there yet at all. So I think right now it's a fun toy. And I think Apple was a good move to postpone the launch, right, of the Apple Intelligent kind of thing, because I just think that it's not ready yet to roll it out, and it will fall flat, and YouTube will be full of like stupid examples, right? As it already is. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's an interesting take on this. I watched some Meta, Facebook. They were hiring AI developers left and right with very large salaries. And then the news came out that Meta was putting a freeze on their AI hiring. And I saw that and I went, "Oh, is this the beginning of the end for the AI bubble?" What do you think? Are we towards the end of the bubble, or are we still going strong?
So, well, we're still going strong, because I think yesterday was it that NVIDIA invested $100 billion in OpenAI, which then OpenAI spends on NVIDIA hardware. Where basically, like, what are we like? This is like overvalued. Yeah, just like, oh, you do a good job here. And no money is actually changing hands. Basically, like there's this. It's gonna pop, and it's gonna pop very hard. I think. There will still be. I use AI for programming. It's amazing. Like it makes me a lot more productive. I'm the president of the FLOSS Foundation. I don't have that much time to program anymore.
I understand.
But now I'm able to do things, because before a meeting, I will set it up, have it running a little bit, like give a few commands, and after the meeting, I come back and be like, no, should have done like this, and then it goes back to work. And
right.
Yeah. So I believe there will be AI in our future. I don't think the promises we see today will come to realize like within 5 years, where like we just have all these agents running around doing our work. Will the way we work change? Yes. I think that I already see it in Home Assistant, where like, oh, let's put the documentation next to the code. So when AI reads it, right, like it will be easier to see that it's connected. Better documentation in general just is good for humans. It's good for AI.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's change coming, but first it needs to crash hard.
Yes. Yeah. There you go. It's a show title. First, it needs to crash hard. Have you guys had problems with the AI contributions to the code?
Oh, yes. We see pull requests of people coming in that you give them feedback, and it's just like they don't know what to do with it because they didn't write the code, right? And I am not against using AI. I use AI myself, but you need to be able to know what it has written. You need to have read what it has written, and you need to understand that you can also make changes if people request it, right? Like it's pretty offensive to just have AI generated and just throw it over the wall and hoping that somebody will either pick it up or do something with it.
Yes. The Mesa project just recently put out some guidance on this, and it boiled down to, okay, fine, we don't mind if you use AI to help you write code, but you need to at least understand what the code is doing.
Yeah. That's very good.
Yes. Go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say, and have looked at it. That bit me this week, actually.
Oh, you had AI wrote some code and you tried to deploy it without actually looking at it?
I had AI write me an Ansible playbook, and it. I skimmed it. Like, it looks good. Let me try it, and
tisk,
I might talk about that on Saturday.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty good in writing automations for Home Assistant, because a lot of our community members are sharing their automations on GitHub for others to see, and that has all gone into the training data. right? And so the training data has seen all of Home Assistant source code, of course, because that's open source. So the autocomplete is good, but also just the programming, it understands it. And with minor mentions of its Home Assistant, it already understands more of how the thing has to be structured and what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, I got overconfident because it had been doing such a good job. I'm like, yeah, it's working.
That to me is the biggest flaw with AI right now, is it has no concept of how good of a job it's going to be able to do. So you tell it to do something and it will give you output back of, yes, this is going to do what you want it to do. With at least a human, we can say, I don't know if this is going to work or not, but this looks right. And AI just has no capability of doing that at this point. Like, that's something genuinely it needs.
Yeah, you have to give it the tools, right? So when I'm programming with it, it knows to run the test suite. It will run the test suite, see if the code it wrote works, yes or no, and then it's actually able to fix it. For automations, there's going to be config validation that at least, this is a valid YAML structure, right? I think that will at least give it some feedback. Although I've also seen it just disable parts of the code so the test passes, right? So it's like, this test fails because it checks for this, so I just removed that. It's like, thanks.
Rendell Schwartz talks about doing AI coding as well, and his take on it is AI right now is a great intern to very junior programmer, and you have to be the senior programmer that holds its hand while you're working with it.
I agree with that. But I think the way I think the future will be is that I want every item on my to-do list has to already have AI look at it, make a plan, execute that plan, and have some code ready, for example, that I can review, or like, I should look for a plumber. I want AI to already find plumbers, and I can just kind of go through that list without me having to even tell AI to do it. My to-do list should just always have like partially executed plans. So then if something is wrong, like with an intern, you feel bad when they do wrong. You're like, oh no, you did this wrong and we got to work on it. With AI, you shouldn't have this emotion. You just throw it away, right? It did some work, it failed, you throw it away, better instructions, just run it again, do it again. And not just one, I'm going to have 100 agents running, right? Because I have like, who's going to read all those emails from schools with like, is it like dotted color clothing day or whatever weird thing they come up, right? Like it should be in my calendar. My kids want to wear those clothes when it's those days, but like, I don't have time to read all those emails.
You don't want to be the one that manages dotted color day at your kid's school.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so we talked AI. What else is coming in sort of this open source smart home space?
So what is coming? I think from our end, we just launched the Z-Wave antenna. We're working on other like hardware to bring more other protocols into the Home Assistant ecosystem. So we really want to leverage ESPHome as like a proxy platform. So we already do Bluetooth proxies where every ESP device can be used as a Bluetooth adapter for Home Assistant. So it can have like 5 ESP devices throughout your house, and Home Assistant will automatically talk through the right ESP device to the device that can see the Bluetooth device the best. And basically you have coverage of your whole house. We want to do these kind of things for Modbus and other smart home standards that are, for example, Modbus is very popular with solar inverters, right? And I want to make sure that there's a lot of the solar inverters are made by Chinese companies. They can be remotely controlled by Chinese clouds. And wouldn't it be nice if we can just have a solution where you can disable that network, don't have it go to the cloud, and all that data streams locally into Home Assistant? Well, that's possible if we get Modbus hooked into Home Assistant. Infrared should be easier to integrate. And so really bring more of these. Some of them are old school protocols, right? But like there's still a lot of devices that use these kind of things. So many air conditionings work through infrared. We put that into Home Assistant, all of a sudden that will work great. Other things, we're just refining our dashboards. We're making our dashboards easier to use. Like we're talking about the advanced tools and making it more friendly for the wider ecosystem earlier. And this is like, we're making our dashboards easier. Our default dashboard will get a big bump in the usability soon. We're refining and improving our automation editor to make it easier to use, which is, those are the two of the core parts of Home Assistant. But there's always it's hard to kind of predict what is happening exactly, like big strokes, because we have 21,000 contributors, right? Like Home Assistant is the most active open source project on GitHub. And
that's awesome.
so there's just people working on stuff all the time everywhere. And sometimes these things like, they pop up and people are like, oh, wow, that's something I want. And someone builds it and we go with it. We prop it up, we help it like past the finish line, give it widespread like attention. One of those projects, by the way, that I'm really excited about is Open ePaperLink. Open ePaperLink is a project that makes firmware for e-ink based price tags from supermarkets.
Yeah.
So there's these tiny 2.9 inch screens that just show the price. They sometimes have like 4 colors, 2 colors. They made custom firmware for these tags. And you used to need an access point. So you had to like get another ESP device that would then speak a custom protocol over 2.4 gigahertz to talk to these tags. They just released a new version that is using Bluetooth. And all of a sudden, now there's tags that you can talk to over Bluetooth directly from Home Assistant over our Bluetooth proxies. And so you can imagine these tags, they have a small battery in it, a CR2032. It will last like a year on battery. You can put them next to your coat hanger. Is it going to rain today? It just has to update, right? Like 5 times a day or something. You can hang one next to the fridge. What is the cooking schedule? Or any of these kind of things that you have to think of at the place where you should think about it, right? And so putting these tags, and that's something that the community is building, and I'm super enthusiastic about it. And like, hoping that they'll succeed, and we're collaborating on seeing how they can reach an even wider audience.
What is the piece of smart home tech that you use that you enjoy the most?
So one I enjoy a lot is my smart lock. So I don't like to carry keys, and so I live in Brooklyn. I don't have a car, and so I just have no keys. Like I can enter my house with a PIN code, or I can use Home Assistant to unlock the door before I arrive at home. So, and I use a Yale lock, and my kids, my kids are 5 and 7. They've been able to open the door since they were 3 to get inside, because I just put the door lock code the same as the iPad. And so they knew.
That's great.
And so, they just walk into the house, and like, it's great, right? Like it gives them also some freedom as well there. And so I really like my smart lock. I like air quality monitors. I like just being able to see, is the air bad or not? It's like, especially when you're cooking, we have a gas stove, like the air quality gets worse faster than you think, right? And being able to like, I need to put open this window it's a good reminder there as well.
Yeah, very cool.
What about automations? Do you have a favorite or a really complex or fancy automation you like?
So in general, I would say the best automations are not complex, because if they get too complicated, there's too many failure modes basically, and you don't want to have false positives, right? Because if you have a false positive, then you don't, like, people are going to, in your household are going to ask you like, hey, can we turn this one off? But one of my favorites is actually just my reminder that I have to put the trash outside. It doesn't even touch the device, right? It just sends a reminder to my smartphone, starting at 8 p.m. on Sunday night and Wednesday night. And every 30 minutes, it will send another notification. And that way, it has a done button on the notification. So if I do it, I press done, I don't get notifications anymore. But because I know I will be reminded in 30 minutes, I also don't get stressed about like not swiping away the notification and then seeing you have a notification, which is, that has worked really well for me. That one I like a lot. What else do I like? So my smart lock, I know who opened the door, right? Because it knows who my kids have their own code. And so, for example, I send myself a notification when my kids open the door, right? So I'm like, I know that like when they run ahead, when we're walking home and I don't see them, I had a notification, they went into the house. Right, they didn't go around the corner or something, because I see that they opened the door.
Yeah. I would be very tempted to use the sort of the passphrase of "my voice is my passport, verify me." to be able to get into the house.
So I had that previously done with my, I just switched from iPhone to Android, but when I was on iPhone, I had my Home Assistant, because it's your data, right? You can just send it to Google Assistant or Apple Home or all these things. And so I had my Home Assistant script connected called Open the Bay Doors, and it would just unlock my front door. And so I could just, when I was walking home, I would just, with my AirPods in, I could just say, Siri, open the bay doors. And then when I came home, the door was unlocked.
That's great. That's great. I was sitting here thinking that only a certain percentage of the audience is going to get the movie reference I made, and then you go with Open the Bay Doors. So bravo. That's very fun. Have you guys had any problems with, we talked a little bit about AliExpress. Have you had any problems with like devices showing up on AliExpress that uses GPL code and no source code to be found? Sort of the bootleg device problem?
Yeah. We are Apache. So we do see devices on AliExpress that uses our logo, which is not allowed, right? Like we are people, there are companies that install Home Assistant in ways that we do not support. And so we have, one of the things that we did early on is that we said, listen, we're only so many people that work on Home Assistant. I mean, it's still a lot, but like we cannot support every operating system under the sun. We cannot support. So we said we have our own operating system and we have a Docker container version. Those are the two ways that you can today run Home Assistant. And the Docker container also has to run on the Linux, right? And previously there was like, oh, it's a Python application. Here are the instructions to install it into a jail and like on BSD or whatever. And it's like, all of a sudden our documentation, like 20% was just exceptions for like, oh, you need to install this compiler on this system. And like, no, we don't want that, right? And we want to keep it simple because you create the documentation that's very verbose and helpful for everyone with a specific problem, but most people don't have those problems, right? And so they see a documentation that is, 20 pages long, and most of them, it don't apply to them. They cannot actually find the actual information. When we do see things on AliExpress, the problem that we have is that if you don't use one of our support installation methods, either it might be that you don't get updates, right? Like we do an update every month. And if you don't get updates, things break, security issues don't get patched, all that stuff. It also means that an unofficial method is unofficial, so things might just not work. And you will still come to our community because you're running Home Assistant, right? And we can't help you. We didn't tell you to put it on this device. But of course, the people are like, yeah, but I paid $80 for this on AliExpress. Like, and Home Assistant is the problem.
Yes. They'll come to your forums and say, I paid you $80 for this.
That's why I always look. I look the forums and the internet to see, does this work with Home Assistant before I buy anything?
So one of the things to tackle this is that we're working on a device database. So we've set ourselves the ambitious goal to categorize every IoT device in the world.
Wow.
So, you gotta. we think on a bigger scale, right? We look at our community and what we're all capable of, and we think of like, what if every user that runs Home Assistant could say, share my device data with Open Home Foundation? Of course, this is always opt-in, right? We never do things automatically, and then we know which models are out there, which firmware versions are out there, which kind of entity, how Home Assistant sees those devices. Then we actually know, oh, this one works, right? Hey, there's 20,000 people with the Philips Hue Hub. Okay, that thing probably works. But we never see this device. And one of the things that happens a lot, as you just mentioned, is like, oh, what should I buy, right? People need to know what works either when they start with Home Assistant or when they want to expand their smart home. And so being able to have a single place where we can collect all of that stuff will be amazing.
Have you guys been able to do any partnerships with some of these really big players like Philips or GE?
So Philips, no, they just like their own ecosystem. But we have LG maintains their own integration in Home Assistant
Very
for
cool.
ThinQ. We have Akara as a Works with Home Assistant partner. So they are an official partner. So we look at how their products are manufactured, the technology that they use, and if we see that they are built alongside our values, and so they're using open standards, which is great, then they get certification. Reolink is another big brand. They make $70 doorbell cameras that work locally, and they are integrated into Home Assistant.
Yeah.
They're very nice. We have a SwitchBot recently joined the program as well. Shelly joined the program. So these are big companies that have a lot of reach within the IoT world.
Yeah.
And they all want to work with Home Assistant because they see that Home Assistant unlocks creativity in how their products are used, right? So they actually, their product managers will learn, oh, maybe we should make this feature even easier for our users because we see that in Home Assistant, our product is used for this kind of feature a lot. And they just want to work with us because we're one of the 5 big smart home platforms. We're not even close, of course, to Google Home or Apple Home, but we are among the big 5. And so our users, our users are also the people that help others with their smart home, right? Like this is the nerds. This is the
yes, absolutely. Is that where sort of some of the funding for the project and the
No,
foundation comes from?
absolutely not. No,
Okay.
we would never take money from manufacturers because
Oh, okay.
we don't want to be influenced by these companies about what we say or how we say it. So we only make money through Nabukasa, which is the commercial partner of the Open Home Foundation. Nabukasa licenses the name Home Assistant for Home Assistant Cloud, which is a cloud subscription, which is optional, gives you end-to-end encrypted connection into Home Assistant remotely, which is something you can set up yourself. But of course, this is convenient.
Right.
Home Assistant Cloud offers also speech-to-text, text-to-speech, for if you want to use Home Assistant Voice with higher quality voices, backup space. And so this is the biggest thing is through Home Assistant Cloud because it's recurring revenue for the Open Home Foundation. And the majority of the profit of Nabukasa's licensed products goes into the Open Home Foundation. And then there's also official Home Assistant hardware, Home Assistant Green, the antenna I just showed. These are also all from Nabukasa. And this is hardware that also where money goes to the Open Home Foundation. Okay. And that hardware, so by the way, I started Nabukasa as well. So this is it. I started Open Home Foundation. I started Nabukasa. Just full disclosure,
Sure.
There's going to be more commercial partners to the Open Home Foundation. This is just like we're still getting started with this setup. We started last year. But Nabukasa, we never really wanted to make hardware, but we realized that the only way to get Home Assistant on a box, like people just don't want to have a Raspberry Pi and install an SD card. And like people just want to have a platform that they can take off a shelf and install. And so we're like, okay, we'll make a box, right? And then
we'll put the Raspberry Pi in the box and put the SD card in.
Exactly.
I know how that works.
Yeah. But so we're doing that, and it's been working very well. So the Open Home Foundation is fully user funded. There's 0 investors involved. There is no external money. There is no debt. That's also why I was able to donate Home Assistant to the Open Home Foundation, right? Because no one else owned a piece of it. And with this relationship where we are working, right? So the Nabukasa has 19 employees. The Open Home Foundation has 80 people working full time.
Oh, wow.
And so that's 100 people working full time, and we're only working for the users. And because there's no investors, it means that everyone at the company knows that we're only doing this for the user, right? There's not like 2 hats where like we tell our community one thing and we tell the investors, oh, don't worry, in 3 years we're going to sell all their data, right? That's just not possible.
Right.
And so we have it's a very, very nice and pleasant work because, we're just we make the community happy. We keep building things, we keep shipping things, and yeah, that works great.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the manufacturers you listed earlier, are they part of the Works with Home Assistant program?
Yeah.
And how is that program going? I mean, is there
So
more
the
to
Works
say
with
about
Home
that?
Assistant program is really growing rapidly. We changed it up a little bit last year when we moved the program from Nabukasa into the Open Home Foundation, and we're now only accepting per device. It used to be per brand, but now we're looking at each device on how it's like which protocol it uses and these kind of things. We're getting bigger partners in, we're getting bigger product ranges in as well. And it's our goal long term, and it's hopefully in a couple of years, that anywhere in the world, for any smart home category, whether it's sensors or locks or light bulbs, you should be able to find a Works with Home Assistant product that works for you. So that if you want to build out a smart home built on top of Home Assistant, that's just like, oh, you live in the UK. Okay, here's a menu of like all the Works with Home Assistant products. We will make sure not only that it works with Home Assistant, we have engineering contacts. That if there's a bug, we can talk to the engineering team, we get firmware upgrades. Every Z-Wave and Zigbee device or Matter device, we want to make sure there are firmware updates available, or at least we know that they are running the latest version, right? So we have our own firmware update service for Zigbee and Z-Wave as well. And this is all requirements of the Works with Home Assistant program. So it has to be really a good citizen of the IoT, of the smart home space.
So does this just let them have the little Works with Home Assistant banner, or is there a database or list of who all these
So
has this?
yeah, it's a good thing you ask about that list. That's the device database is going to solve that too. So we currently have all these blog posts on our website and on the documentation, on the integrations, kind of, you find there's not a single list right now of all Works with Home Assistant devices, but hopefully we're going to do a small list version like within a month, and the device database is coming in like, I don't know, 6 months or something.
Yeah, so that's the ideal here, right? Somebody like me that has none of this set up, I homebrewed my smart home stuff. Don't use Home Assistant at all. But if I wanted to move into that, which I may, really what I would like to do is to be able to go to a website somewhere and say, okay, I want this kind of sensor, I want this kind of integration, I want this kind of hardware. Now give me the list of officially supported options.
Yeah,
and
it's coming.
That's going to be a game changer for people, particularly setting up new systems.
Right.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah. Well, that's actually the thing where it's important that we always support every integration, even if we don't agree with how the manufacturer runs their business, right? Or like cloud-based. It's because when people come into Home Assistant, we're generally not their first smart home system, right? People tend to buy first a couple of devices that are smart, not realizing they're building a smart home. At some point, they want to put it all in one app, right? Like usually driven by voice, whether it's Google or Apple, maybe Amazon. And then they run into limitations. Maybe they want better history, better dashboards, better automations. They want privacy. There's some device that's not supported. They start searching online. They always find Home Assistant. But when they find Home Assistant and they are going to use Home Assistant we need to not only solve that problem that they're having, we need to do everything that their old system does, right? That's why we build out voice, because we want to be able to offer voice control. But we also have to integrate that shitty Tuya device that they might have bought at like a supermarket or a Walmart, whatever, back in the days.
Right.
Yeah, I think the big thing that drew me in initially, I mean, this was like a decade ago, is I was tired of having, 5-10 different apps to go to on my phone. It's like, well, for this I gotta go to this, and this I gotta go to this. It's one thing.
But like there's people that experience it every day, but they just are not thinking in a way of like, oh, maybe there's a one app to rule them all. Right? They just use the multiple apps.
It's like the old remote control problem, having 5 different remote controls. Is now they got the universal remote.
Yep.
Exactly. All right. We are getting to the end of the show. I have a few standard questions I ask. One is, what's the most surprising thing that someone has done with this?
Ooh, I've seen a bunch of RVs that are running Home Assistant. There are boats that are running Home Assistant. There are gardens that run Home Assistant. So I had not expected, especially like mobile vehicles, to adopt Home Assistant, but apparently there is a big use case for that too, because they need to monitor their battery, right? They don't want to use too much electricity. They need to turn off things. So that has been very surprising. I think in general, we sometimes see crazy hacks. There's like beer breweries running Home Assistant, right? And like, oh, okay. I mean, it makes sense. You want to monitor devices. You want to alert when something goes wrong. You want to turn things on or off. We also see people in wheelchairs, paralytic people that are able to use Home Assistant to give themselves some more independence, because they are able to have use their voice or like able to control certain things like opening doors with buttons that they now have on their wheelchair, for example.
Yeah. Is there any thought of trying to make like an enterprise focused version of Home Assistant?
Absolutely not. I think that we want to. When we started Home Assistant, I remember people were telling all the time, within a couple of years, you're going to do like office buildings because that's where the money is at. But like, that's boring. Like, that is just like enterprise stuff. You need like rule-based access control. You need like all these different audit layers. And you're just building basically surveillance tools, right? Like how the building is being used. And that's the opposite. I think that our mission is really to get consumers access to a smart home that works private and has local control.
But if somebody wants to do that with it,
they can do it.
Them.
No, I was this summer I was in Hungary and I visited a hotel, 300 rooms powered by Home Assistant, all powered by Z-Wave. I mean, that was very cool to see. So it's possible people are doing it. It's just not me.
Hey, that's fair. That is totally fair. There are some things that I don't want to be the guy to do that, but knock yourself out.
Yeah. I mean, and there's money to be made, right? Like,
Absolutely.
Obviously, there's a lot of restaurants, whatever, that could use and benefit from these kind of features, but it needs contract maintenance, installers, you need to sales, all that stuff. And it just doesn't scale well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so final two questions that we are required to ask is, what's your favorite programming language and text editor?
So I'm using Python. Obviously, Home Assistant is written in Python, so that's my favorite language. TypeScript would be my second favorite right now because that's what we use for the front end as well. I'm able to quickly whip up things. But I see really Python also with the AI. It knows Python very well. Yeah. I feel the types in TypeScript tend to get in the way from the AI. It just confuses them. And so it doesn't really, they don't look at the type, which attributes are available. They're just going to make up things anyway. And so it's very verbose, which takes up context space in your AI. So Python is really good all around. Always, even in small scripts that I need to do, like move files around, whatever, I just use Python. I use Visual Studio Code as my editor of choice. I really like that they have the dev containers. So really, a dev container it spins up a Docker container. Every repository in the OpenHome Foundation has a definition file for the dev containers. It automatically installs all dependencies, requirements, and within like 5 minutes, you're up and running. Yeah. And so you don't need to have the right Python version locally. You don't need to have the whatever dependencies you need to run Home Assistant. You just start this dev container. It works. GitHub even allows us to run these dev containers in the cloud with Visual Studio Code connected to it as backend. Yeah. So it's really a really powerful setup.
Yeah, absolutely. I could ask the sort of troll question is when are you planning to rewrite all of this in Rust?
So there are libraries getting rewritten in Rust, right? Like that we depend on. But no, I'm not a Rust writer. Like I do like it when things are written in Rust because it gets very fast. But also, like all the Python tooling, by the way, is getting rewritten. There's a startup called Astral. They made UV, which basically is the Python package manager, got rewritten in Rust. We switched to it from Home Assistant, and it runs on our CI. And we save like 160 hours a month just when installing packages because it's now Rust powered. So yeah, there's definitely benefit for the environment, for our budget, all that stuff. But yeah, I'm not the one to do it.
All right, fair enough. Hey, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time. It has been a blast to talk about Home Assistant and the OpenHome Foundation and all of the things you guys have going on.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me. It was good to be here.
Yep, appreciate it. All right, Rob, what do you think? I think you need to up your game.
I do. I've been using Home Assistant for a long time, but it's just kind of been idle there. I really need to get. I've heard of. I mean, I've known of ESPHome and that stuff and Matter for a while. I've just never gotten into it. So those are some things I really need to get myself into more.
Yeah, I didn't talk about it during our conversation with him, but I've got some light switches running. I think Tasmoda is the name of the project, and I wonder if it would work just as well on ESPHome. Probably would. I'm very intrigued by this idea. My smart home is sort of held together with bubblegum and duct tape and shoestring.
You just throw in a Home Assistant. It's probably going to detect most, if not everything you have. I mean, that's what I found. It just pops up. A few things I had to do it, a few extra things, but add some add-ons. But yeah, it's always been great.
Yeah, very cool. I'll have to look into it. All right, Rob, is there anything you want to plug before we let the folks go?
For those who want more of me, come find me at robertpcampbell.com. Links to my LinkedIn, Blue Sky, all those social media things. Mm-hmm. Or you can come hear more of me on Saturdays on the Untitled Linux Show with me and Jonathan and a few other people.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate you being here. If you want to find more of me, of course, Rob just talked about the Untitled Linux Show. There is that, but there's also Hackaday. That is the home of Floss Weekly these days, and that is also where my security column goes live every Friday morning. If that's the sort of thing that you want to find out more about, you can go there and check that out. Next week, we are talking with Veiled or Veiled. I don't remember exactly how that is pronounced. But that is a sort of a security solution, sort of a VPN sort of thing. It's open source. We're going to find out more about it. Met those guys through DEF CON, and it's going to be very interesting to talk to them. And then a couple of weeks after that, we're talking with James Cole about Firefly 3, which is a double accounting bookkeeping system for you at home. And it's got some really interesting looking stuff. That may be another one of those where I do a setup of the program while we're talking to the guests, because it looks pretty cool. Anyway, if there is a project that you think we should feature or that you run and you want us to talk to, you can drop us an email. It's floss@hackaday.com, and that'll come to me and my lovely assistant, and we can get it set up and make it work. We appreciate everybody that's here, those that watch, those that listen, get us live and on the download, and we will be back next week on Floss Weekly.